What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with what's next for Israel Adesanya after UFC loss. Israel Adesanya repeatedly insisted heading into UFC Saudi Arabia that he remains a force in the middleweight division, but Nassourdine Imavov may have closed the book on the last Stylbender's days as a title contender. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. Adesanya faced Imavov in the headliner of yesterday's card, which marks the first time since 2019 that he was not competing in a title fight. The former middleweight champ looked pretty good early on, and he squashed a few takedown attempts from Imavov and fired back strikes. But in round 2, Imavov sent the star to the deck with a right hook, and the fight was stopped as he was following up with punches. Some will argue that the fight was stopped a tad prematurely, but at the end of the day, the 35-year-old Adesanya has lost 3 straight bouts. Granted, those defeats have come against elite competition, but you do have to wonder if Izzy's days at the top have come to a close. After the loss, Adesanya told ESPN that he plans to, quote, chill and think about things, unquote. So it remains to be seen what that means. It's hard to imagine him walking away from the game at this point, even if he did make some serious money over the last couple of years. Chatmankar Sandhu shared a backstage video of an interaction between Izzy and Imavov, and it was nothing but respect from both fighters.
Oh, un petit peu. No worries, way class act, good fighter. Respect, man. Thank you. One day. You too, man. Thank you.
Izzy later posted a video on social media watching back the Nassourdine TKO, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, don't watch it yet. Don't watch it yet. Oh, no, you can watch it.
Yeah, every time. Let me just.
Nah, watch it.
Raw. Just raw. The speed.
Nassourdine Imavov fighting the number 2 Israel Adesanya.
The speed. It's so good. Oh.
Fair game. Fair game. Oh, yo, pops. Seconds. Oh, that's how the game goes.
I thought Izzy looked incredible right up until he got caught. Looked good. Was picking him apart, staying on the outside. Takedown defense was incredible. Chopping that calf kick, the whole first round. He couldn't have had a better first round, and then he got caught.
Meanwhile, Imavov is knocking on the title shot door with Saturday's win. The 29-year-old is probably behind Khamzat Chimaev in terms of who will fight the winner of Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland 2. But given that he just took out the number 2 ranked Adesanya, a legend, his case for a title shot is extremely strong. Aljamain Sterling steps in to replace Merab Dvalishvili. Aljamain Sterling is stepping in to replace his good buddy and teammate Merab Dvalishvili. But no, that doesn't mean that he's returning to bantamweight. Recently, it was reported that Sterling is replacing Dvalishvili as a coach on the Russian reality show Hype Global. If you haven't heard of the show, basically it's the Russian version of The Ultimate Fighter. The champion, Merab, was supposed to coach opposite Peter Yan on the show, and the program was already running promotions showing that. As this video is being produced, Merab has not announced why he dropped out of the program, but some believe that Dvalishvili did so after the Georgian fighter took some heat for agreeing to be on the Russian show. Political tensions between Georgia and Russia remain high. Even though Merab ultimately withdrew from the program, the bantamweight is still taking verbal fire. The argument being that if he had an issue with being on a Russian show, why did he agree to be on it in the first place? Following Dvalishvili's decision, one of the vice presidents for Hype Global blasted the Georgian star in a follow-up video. At one juncture, he said this about the renowned fighter.
Merab, смотри, это холл, в котором ты мог быть, если бы не был очкошником.
Do you understand why Merab is being lit up by some observers, or do you think people should hold off until we learn the actual reason for his withdrawal? All that aside, it looks like Sterling is excited to be on the show. Master recently posted this. Gonna be a fun few with weeks. It's gonna be interesting to see how the show unfolds with Yan and Sterling as coaches. While Yan fought and lost to Merab in 2023, he also had some serious baggage with Aljo. Yan lost his first bout with Sterling due to a DQ for an illegal knee, before dropping a split decision in their rematch.
Вручает Оскара.
Tom Aspinall and Dana White not impressed with Sergei Pavlovich. Sergei Pavlovich recorded a pivotal victory on Saturday against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, but the man who quickly dusted him in November 2023, Tom Aspinall, was not impressed. Pavlovich faced the experienced kickboxer on the main card, in a fight that, on paper, looked to offer some serious fireworks. Well, the bout failed to deliver big time, but Pavlovich did enough to record a UD victory. Aspinall was watching the action, and via his Instagram account, he took the following shot at both Pavlovich and Rozenstruik. These heavyweight fights lately absolutely stink. Let's get some excitement back and stop holding it up. Yeah, if somehow that fight helps get Aspinall versus Jones booked, it'll all be worth it. Of course, the holdup for that fight is almost certainly related to how much cash the UFC is willing to offer Bones. White was also asked to comment on Pavlovich's performance following UFC Saudi Arabia. While White acknowledged that the fight sucked, he didn't throw the dangerous heavyweight under the bus.
Pavlovich versus Rozenstruik, two big heavy hitters. Didn't turn out to be a great fight, realistically.
Horrible.
Yep. Yeah.
Horrible fight. Listen, we can say that the fight sucked. We didn't like the fight. Sergei won. He you know what I mean? He won the fight. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't fun to watch. The only fight all night that got booed. But he won at the end of the day. And styles make fights. And normally it's not like he's normally in bad fights. The guy comes in and throws hard punches. And tonight it just wasn't fun.
It is true that for most of Pavlovich's UFC run, he has been a must-see fighter. After all, before his losses to Aspinall and Alexander Volkov, the feared slugger stopped 6 straight opponents, and all of them inside the first round. That's quite the finishing rate. Up next, UFC updates. UFC matchmakers are starting to book fights for the promotion's second quarter of 2025. Case in point, recently AG Fight reported that Michel Pereira and Abus Magomedov are going to throw down on April 26. The UFC is holding a fight night card that day in Kansas City, Missouri. Pereira is looking to get back on track after he had his 8-fight winning streak snapped by Anthony Hernandez in October. The highlight reel striker was finished with ground and pound strikes in round 5 of that fight. Magomedov, meanwhile, has won 2 straight since he dropped back-to-back bouts to Caio Borralho and Sean Strickland, respectively. In his last outing in October, he submitted Bruno Ferreira in round 3. Marcel Dorf is reporting that the UFC's Vegas card on April 5th will see Torres Finney make his octagon debut against TUF 32 middleweight runner-up Robert Valentin. Finney has gone 10-0 to date in pro bouts and earned his way into the UFC with a win in the last Dana White Contender Series season. Valentin, meanwhile, has not fought since he was stopped by Ryan Loder in the TUF 32 finale, which went down back in August. And it looks like we could see middleweight contender Paulo Costa back in the cage soon. The Brazilian star has not competed since last June when he dropped a split decision loss to Sean Strickland. More recently, however, Costa shared via social media that he's preparing to fight in April. Who do you want to see Borrachinha fight next? If you need a refresher, the former title challenger is currently ranked number 11 in the UFC's middleweight division. Dana White confident Khamzat will fight in the USA. For a little while now, there's been a lot of speculation as to whether Khamzat Chimaev can even get a visa to fight in the United States. But following UFC Saudi Arabia, Dana White insisted we will see Boers fighting in America again. Due to the fact that Chimaev has not fought in the US since 2022, many have questioned whether the Chechen fighter can in fact enter the country anymore. In 2023 and 2024, both of Chimaev's fights took place in Abu Dhabi. In fact, recently, it was reported by Home of Fight that Boers has received a UAE passport on account of his citizenship. Chimaev reportedly had this to say in response: "It is my honor and privilege to be able to represent this beautiful nation both as an athlete and a citizen." As noted, White was asked about the situation following UFC Saudi Arabia, and the UFC CEO proceeded to say that the notion Chimaev cannot enter the US is
Don't listen to any of that bull. He'll get in the United States.
And then,
I'm very confident that
do you know a guy?
I'm very confident that we can get him into the country.
Given White's relationship with President Donald Trump, no one should be surprised to hear that he's pretty confident they can arrange for Chimaev to get in the country. What fight could bring Chimaev to the US? Obviously, if the UFC is thinking about having him face the winner of Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland too, getting him in the US could be important. While not every UFC pay-per-view takes place in the States, the majority do. On account of Nasruddin Imavov's big win over Israel Adesanya on Saturday, however, White was also asked if Chimaev versus Imavov could be a possibility.
I mean, the fight just happened 30 minutes ago. I don't know what we're going to do yet, but there's lots of possibilities. And yes, that's definitely one of them.
It's interesting to hear White say that, as ever since Chimaev ran through Robert Whittaker in October, the consensus has been he's locked up a title shot. But maybe it will depend on what goes down with DDP Strickland too. If a rubber match materializes, the UFC may want to roll with Chimaev versus Imavov. What's next for Michael Page after UFC WIN? The Shara Magomedov hype train was moving in overdrive heading into UFC Saudi Arabia, but Michael Venom Page and his unorthodox style derailed it all. Magomedov had some success early on with some thumping leg kicks, but Page and his elusive darting style began to take over the fight. While Magomedov never appeared to be in serious danger of being finished, after 3 rounds of action, it was clear that Venom would be awarded the decision win. So what's next for Page? That's a good question. Leading up to the Saudi Arabia card, there was talk of how if Page lost, it wouldn't really impact his UFC position. He moved up from welterweight to fight Shara. But now that Page has secured a victory over a middleweight contender who was undefeated heading into the card, maybe we could see MVP at 185 again. During the post-fight press conference, Page called out Leon Edwards, saying it would be a great fight for the United Kingdom.
Again, the only one I ever really talk about is Leon Edwards, but that's more so at a specific location. So it's only for the UK, but it's not because of him. I just think the fight would be great for, my fans over in the UK.
Do you want to see Leon Edwards versus MVP during a UK card? Let us know down in the comment section below. MVP later went on to talk about fighting in the UFC and how different it is compared to fighting in Bellator. The question came up because he would have more finishes in Bellator, either knockouts or submissions, compared to him fighting in the UFC. So far in the UFC, MVP is 2-1, and all of his fights have gone to decision.
There is an effect of being in the UFC, the magnitude of UFC brand, the event. I think that's what's kind of still weighing on me a little bit, and it's making me a little bit more hesitant. Whereas, before when I was at Bellator, there was no hesitation. I was in there, I was very sure of myself, but I don't know if it's I'm wanting it too much, or I'm second guessing myself. I don't know what it is, but there is definitely a UFC effect. But the more comfortable I get, the more you're going to see the old MVP.
Shara Bullet, meanwhile, is going to have to go back to the drawing board. While there's no big shame really in losing a striking contest to a walking highlight reel like Page, there's no doubt this was a significant setback for Shara. As noted, MVP has not been competing at middleweight, so there's a good chance that the loss will move Magomedov out of the top 15 rankings. Before Saturday's fight, Shara was ranked number 14. MVP obviously was not ranked at middleweight. Currently, Venom is ranked number 15 in the welterweight division. Shara also revealed some sad news after his fight with MVP. As we broke the news on MMA Zone a couple of days ago, Shara was dealing with some sort of health issues, and he confirmed it during a post-fight statement on social media. Shara took to Instagram to write the following message: "The pirate sails into the harbor, but I will return. I knew all the risks when stepping in with such a nightmarish health condition and preparation. I felt that despite everything, I could still win, but it didn't work out, and that's it. Thank you to the UFC organization for this opportunity and to everyone involved. I wanted to put on a show and meet expectations without canceling the fight. Thank you to everyone who stands by me in any situation. Alhamdulillah." As we mentioned on the channel, it looked like Shara was dealing with some sort of infection on his leg, which could have led to him taking antibiotics during fight week. This could explain why Shara felt fatigued and slow during the entire fight. If you want to stay up to date with the news, make sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone. We were the only outlet that broke this story, and will continue to break more stories in the future, so subscribe and turn on notifications to stay up to date.